My favorite building, it's the corner building.
Welcome back to the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting of Thursday, March 20th. We are going to speak for about half an hour or less, if need be, or more, if need be, with the Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources, Beth Fastiggi. And I think you know us all, so we'll just say welcome. Hopefully the walk up from your office was pleasant. Is it a nice day out there?
It is absolutely gorgeous. There's so many people out in the State House.
Oh, good.
Steps, and someone has put in, made a heart in the State House lawn with the shape of those, kind of dig safe flags, and orange, red dig safe flags with a huge heart on the lawn. So I think that means that you are all loved.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. So
I hope they didn't take them from the Fort Dig Safe.
Yeah.
People who were like trying
Yeah,
to mark their thing.
I think you can buy those.
It was the people who were on the lawn the other day. The flag represents someone who was unhoused. If we don't pass the budget adjustment.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just take it as that we are all loved.
I love.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, welcome. I assume that you would like to continue in your role.
I would. Beth Fastiggi, Human Resources Commissioner. I started this role in 2017, shortly after Governor Scott came into office. And with the upcoming departure of anticipated departure of two commissioners, I think I will be the longest serving commissioner. So that's, I guess, probably longer than I expected to be here. I came into state government after a 30-year career in the private sector in telecommunications. And I do really love this job. I love working with the people on the human resources team. They are just such a knowledgeable, hardworking, committed team. And that really makes my job even more, makes me feel good about the work that we're doing and the work that we're doing in our department to internally serve all the, various departments in the state through, making sure they're paid properly and making sure that they're, classed appropriately in the right job and get their benefits and doing all the things that we do. And if they have issues, that we're working with them, with employees and their appointing authorities and trying to resolve those and negotiating solid labor contracts. So all those things that we do and more is just, the people that are behind the scenes or sometimes out front that are doing that work are just really committed to just doing the best they can for employees and for the state of Vermont. And then also externally with our talent acquisition team. So we're kind of getting that message out there and trying to bring new employees in. So yeah.
How many employees?
We have about in DHR.
Yes.
I think we're at about 106.
And is that relatively flat or have we added or?
We added positions twice over my tenure. One is actually just bring some of we do employment investigations and misconduct investigations. And there used to be two units. There's one over AHS and there was one within DHR. We combined those and they all came under the DHR umbrella. So it was 3 people came over from there. And then in addition, 2 years ago, we got an additional 8 positions to really, it was basically because our work has changed so much since the pandemic with the higher level of turnover and churn that we're seeing in employees. It was just a lot more administrative work that we saw, just a lot more job applications that need to be posted, a lot more hires that need to be done. So just a lot of that transactional work needed to be done. So we got some positions for that and we spread those out across our department to try to help us serve the rest of the folks better and provide more kind of service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we still have a lot of people, not necessarily just with you, but statewide that are working from home?
We do. That's our telework policy was put in place back in 2012. But before the pandemic, it was used, but not nearly as much. And then, everybody went home, legislature went home, we all worked remotely, everyone got good at it. A lot of people got really good at it. And felt that they were very productive that way. So we do across state government, the employees that are teleworking, between a few hours a week or, 5 days a week, somewhere in between, that would have a telework agreement between themselves, their supervisor and their appointing authorities. Everybody would be signing and agreeing to those hours and kind of moving forward. So we have, on our employee engagement survey, that we conducted last spring, we had it's kind of hard to say what percentage of employees, because the people who are more prone to fill out the survey are people who are more prone to be able to telework, because it's more administrative. People are going to fill out a survey because they're on a computer all day, whereas people who are working in the facilities are less likely to be able to, find the time or put that on their priority list to do, since it's, turning on the computer where they wouldn't normally be on there. So, we do have quite a lot of employees still teleworking for sure. And I think that's here to stay. That's one of the things where some employees or new employees, they won't want to, they won't even apply for a job unless there's some elements of remote work available. And that, I think society's just changed where that expectation is there for a lot of people in the workforce. And as we know, the demographics in Vermont are such that we don't have a huge influx of workers that are looking for employment. So we need to, one of the things we need to do is try to make the state of Vermont an attractive place to work. I also think that in many cases, remote work, people can be more productive with remote work. You don't necessarily have to go from one meeting to the next, especially with some of the folks in our department. We're serving people across state government. So the ability to just have a Teams meeting and face to face is great, but when you know the people that you're interacting with, not having to do that travel distance to meetings and not having to set up 15 minutes between meetings, you can go back to back, which is tiring, but it can be done. So that productivity component, I think, is a benefit as well.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just to build on that, I think our remote work policies can be very beneficial to workers who have typically been unable to kind of maintain some of the balance of needing to commute to Montpelier or need to commute to Barrie when in reality the functions of their job all exist on a screen that could be really placed just about anywhere. So I think there is a lot of benefits to parents as well. This party outlook, yes. But I just had I just say that sorry to kick you on the table. But I really appreciate the work that you've done in this role. And I started serving in the legislature in 2018. So you've been the only person I've known in this role. So I don't know anything different. But it seems like the department has been run very well. And there have been kind of some, I would say, like media blips of things that I've being on Senate Government Operations have seen you come in and kind of respond to or kind of flesh out why are vacancy savings popping up so much? Why are the misconduct people not being in working and being out? Like those, I feel very confident with your ability to communicate the position that you have to take, but also providing us with information. So even when I disagree, I feel like we've had a good working relationship, and I so respect that, because I think if you're going to be in such a kind of tip of the spear position, you have to be able to reflect your superior's perspective in the department you serve, but have an open dialogue. So I really appreciate that. So my question to you is actually one that I asked I asked Adam Gresham, which is, you're in a role where you are, I don't know who you directly manage, but you kind of supervise everybody in your role, and you're in a way middle management to the governor. And I'm wondering if you feel that you have the ability to advocate and push against when there might be a decision made at a higher level that you think has a negative impact for either the people you directly oversee or the department, and how do you feel that those conversations go?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things actually about government is the ability to have that transparency. I mean, the data is there, and the data is there to support various positions, but there's a lot of data out there, and if we have that data and have the ability to share that, and if the decision is different than one that I've advocated for, as you said, so be it, but having the opportunity to provide the information and provide the so this is what I think, or this is what we want to do. And if we go this way, this is what I think is going to happen. If we go this way, this is what I think is going to happen. And to have the ability to have that input to make those decisions. And that's what I try to do with the legislature as well. I mean, you have a lot of questions, and they're great questions. And we have a lot of that information that we can share with you to help you be better informed legislators, and then make the decision on what way you want to go. But at least it's a more informed decision on either this is how we operate today, or this is what people might be saying, but the data says this, or we don't have a lot of data on that, but this is what I hear, or I don't hear anything. So I think it's important in this role really to be open about what that information is, so everybody can make the best decision that they are able to make.
And do you feel like when you're in a position where maybe the data or the information you have is different than what you're being asked by maybe someone in a higher role is saying should be the plan, do you feel like you're able to advocate effectively in that way? Do you feel like there's a good culture around that, or is it really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I always get exactly what I want? No. But is that process open and respectful? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Senator Bielanski.
Thank you. I've got two questions, maybe more. But the first one, kind of going back to the telehealth aspect, has there been any data or cataloging of the reduction in office space needs due to more people being telehealth? And maybe that's a BGS question, but
Yeah. So with the telework, it's a very good question. I think very timely. They've been looking in they're kind of looking in that issue in the House. And that's one thing I think that we are going to be looking into a little bit more, combining the need for space with the needs of the department, and what will be the long-term plans, and how much, because with telework, I could say today, and if anyone in my department is listening, like, we're going to not have anyone telework. Everyone's going to come into the office, explain why we want to make that change. I'm not, I don't want to make that change right now. My employees they're doing a great job. They are very good at communicating remotely, and they work with each other very well, and they are very productive. But if I was to make that change, I would have the ability to make that change. I would want to make sure that no matter who is in charge, that the people would have a place to come and work. So I think that's important to keep that in mind if we're thinking about how we were going to keep all those things in mind when you're thinking about reducing space. In some states, even before the pandemic, I believe Tennessee was a state that wanted to get out of some more urban office spaces to have budgetary savings, and they really promoted telework even before the pandemic, and to try as a way to try to reduce office space. And that's kind of continued in that department where that's happened more in places where there's, big city centers, or the land where the office space is very expensive. We haven't really had that space. Not that, office space, I'm not sure if office space is at a premium. We have a housing crisis, but right now there is office space. So we haven't had that type of crisis where we've had to quickly consolidate. So we have more time. But I just had actually a conversation with Secretary earlier this week about trying to coordinate more the telework with the space needs, and trying to find out where we want, where we want to go in the future, and what it kind of looks like. So trying to get a handle on really how much telework is happening, what the space needs are now, or how they going forward.
Did you have another one?
I did. That's really helpful. And I'm glad to hear that conversation's happening in like partially due to, you know, as you point out, the housing crisis, if we can free up space.
Right, and I think that that conversation's been happening, certainly in the city of Montpelier, but also, in house institutions. They have a bill associated with BGS, I think, going to be able to kind of do a space inventory, which they already do, but kind of reporting on that, I think. I'm not sure how the bill is gonna come out, but there's a lot of interest in that.
Awesome to hear that. My other question, we continue to have vacancy challenges. And so I'm wondering what your plan is sort of for this coming to start to tackle those.
Well, I actually, our vacancy savings is running much closer to normal and our vacancy savings, our vacancies in general pre-pandemic levels. So that is, that's good. Like we are, I'm not going to say we're back and it's sustained, but we are really kind of pleased with the progress we're seeing in those areas. So it's not without a lot, you know, the recruitment is harder, but harder than it once was. And we have to work harder to get those applicants. But we're seeing between fiscal year 24 and 23, we saw that that turnover, the voluntary turnover numbers continue to decline. So that is really, I think that's really promising, especially in a state where we don't have as many people entering the workforce and where it is a place where employees really do have an advantage, not only competing in Vermont, but working remote. They can stay working here and then work somewhere, you know, in another state or internationally. So I'm pleased with what the numbers are showing and the progress that I'm seeing as far as we were, you know, filling vacancies, and we're kind of, I'd say, back up to staffing about right where we were before the pandemic, because we kind of dipped down a little bit. We're back at kind of more normal staffing levels. So hopefully, you know, we'll have the funding streams to continue that level of staffing and continue to provide the services that we're doing to Vermonters.
So much like a coin, I'll ask you a question that has two sides to it.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the most challenging aspect of your job, and then the easier one, probably, because it can be aspirational, is
Yeah.
the most rewarding part of your job.
Yeah, I think I talked in the beginning kind of about the rewarding job, and that's just that every day seeing the hard work that's happening and the dedication of people. That just to me is a very rewarding place to work, and how even if people don't agree or their missions are different, that they know that they'll collaborate to move whatever they need to do forward.
Mhm.
So that I think is just a rewarding piece of that culture, and to be a part of that culture. The most challenging part for me, that's harder, I think, harder to say. Challenging. I think it's so many things coming at us at once and trying to prioritize all of the important work that we're trying to do. Right now, we've got, it's a legislative season, so that's we're busier. We're embarking on this big enterprise resource planning project, which will change our what we call our VTHR system, which is the system that we do the payroll in, that we track all employees in, and then to the budgeting system, to the accounting system. So it's a huge multi-year project, but just, you know, putting all that in at the same time, you're still trying to deliver the services, and then, you know, having other things come your way, and you're like, I would love to be able to do that, but I have these other priorities. So trying to meet everybody's needs, wants, wishes, and knowing that you just don't have those resources to make that happen. And I think that's typical in any organization. I think that's a challenge for any leader in any organization. That you're never going to have, it's never going to be everything you want. No one ever has all the money and all the people that they want to do everything they want. Yeah, so it's a challenge, but, we just work through it and prioritize the best we can and put our resources where they're needed the most at the moment and try to roll the punches.
So I would know that, to your first point, who's ever making hiring decisions must be doing a really good job, because if you're surrounded now by people that you enjoy watching work,
Yeah,
I mean, every now and then, I don't know if clunker is a apt description, but if you're in a position where you're deciding who to hire and who not to hire, every now and then someone sort of slips through and they kind of end up being a clunker. And, you have to take certain measures into account there, but it sounds like the decisions that are being made are good ones, and you're finding really good people.
we have in our department and across state government, I mean, I think that's one of the things when people are our pay isn't the best pay. It's okay. Our benefits are great, but I think there's something very attractive to people who are service oriented and mission oriented about delivering, making a difference. And I think you all probably know that as legislature, it's not great in the legislature, not great all the time, and you're not doing it for the money.
Yeah, we're not doing it for the money.
You're not doing it for the money. And I mean, being paid is important, but it's not, that's not, oh, I'm going to be a state legislature and I'm going to make the big bucks. And I think that's what people think, you need to make a living. You want to be recognized for the work you're doing. And this is my career, and you need to make that work for yourself and your family. But the other side of that is just that mission oriented work that you see, and that folks in any department or agency should be able to rally around and have a work culture that is positive.
Senator Vyhovsky.
I am really happy to hear that we're back to sort of pre-pandemic vacancy levels. And my understanding is vacancies were an issue even before the pandemic. And I'm wondering, given some of the upheaval, if we have a plan to potentially recruit federal workers that are losing their jobs to join our state workforce, to provide them more stability and us people.
Yeah, I've been on a couple calls about that, like national calls through national organizations. And it is, some states have definitely put it out there, even making kind of political statements that we've seen in New York, like, we want you. But I mean, we are pretty small. So I think we are benefiting from, if a federal worker, like, hey, let's try to work in the state, and that's coming to us. We haven't done additional advertising, just particularly targeting federal workers, but we're still in areas where they can find us and they can find the jobs. And only anecdotally, we don't have a great system-wide way to track that, but anecdotally, we are seeing that we are getting applications from federal employees, former federal employees. So anecdotally, but as far as like a big ad campaign or creating a lot of creative stuff on our website, we don't have that. There's definitely a lot of conversations around that area, but nothing at this point that I'm aware of that is that we've seen in some other states.
So there isn't a targeted campaign, but they're openness to what that could look like.
The National Parks employees.
Right.
We need parks people.
Right. And I think that is the thing, we're very aggressively advertising our parks jobs on the websites now. So like, that's what we do around this time. So if people are looking right now, they should be able to see those front and center positions.
How are we doing, by the way?
What?
This is like
Just
I'd love to hear the answer to that. Yeah.
you folks sitting around the table said, how do you think the legislature's doing? Are we doing all we could do, should do? I know that's a loaded question. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Because you guys don't do everything I want all the time.
I
You don't
know.
vote the way I want all the time.
Okay, that's fair. Even within this room, that's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You guys don't all agree on the same thing. So, how is the legislature doing? It's a different, it's a big change from last year to this year. Big turnover, committee chairs are changing
Yep.
and I think that it seems like, the beginning, people are just with newer folks, I think you can't rely on as much institutional knowledge as you once had, and you're seeing some more turnover, which is hard, it's refreshing and hard at the same time, right? So, someone that you maybe used to always rely on that knew the answer, like they're not there anymore. So how do you find the answer and how do you get it quickly? So I think that, it's been like, it's challenging, but it's also a dynamic time when, you're seeing new leadership and building new relationships. So I mean, you guys I think that operationally, the way that you're able to conduct the hybrid hearings and broadcast all this stuff on YouTube, it makes it very easy for us if we can't attend a hearing to come and hear what the conversation was. So I think that I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate that you make it so that if someone can't come to the legislature, if they're ill or whatever, they can participate and still participate remotely. And I think that is probably a challenge, but also beneficial. So I think along those lines, like how you guys have dealt with technology and made the legislature more accessible and is really helpful.
To your point, do you feel like there is a reputation or a belief that the legislature is welcoming when staff come and testify? I think of you as like staff person. And I think at different points in my experience, depending on the committee I'm in, there's been this like, oh, we're not going to have people, we don't send our people to that committee because we know that they're going to be treated not in the way that we want them to be treated, or that their information isn't going to be taken seriously. I'm wondering if you feel like that culture still exists, or if there's ways that we've improved it, because you kind of have the bird's eye view of how our staff feel in a way that I think most of our department heads might not have a direct feed on. But I always want a staff member, no matter who they are, to feel like they can come, and even though it can be intimidating to be a witness in any situation, even if you're coming to advocate for something and you've got full support, it's still intimidating. Yeah. So if there's ways that we can make it more welcoming so that people feel like they can give information at the very least.
And I appreciate that, because when our department is asked to testify, and I would like to bring, a subject matter expert, and depending on the topic or who the legislature is or how I think the committee is going to go, I may be like, no, I don't want, you are really busy. I want you to just keep doing what you're doing, because I don't think it's going to change the outcome in a way favorable for you. Have I done that before? Yeah. And have I done that before? Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't mean that, I'm trying to think of a particular example, in this session that I had seen, that I felt like, that like somebody was bullying one of my employees. I'm like, it's not like if that was happening, and if it was, I would definitely speak with the chair, or I'd speak with the chair of that committee if I felt like that was happening, because I know that I don't think that that's the way that overall the legislature wants to be seen.
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate that point. And what I'm trying to just say is that, if you ever do hear that there's that experience, like that's the exact opposite, then I'd say what we want to have come across. But, but there is also a level of like, it is intimidating, and it can be no fun, even if you're just someone coming in and
I can guarantee you that, that the preference is, it's not do I have to, do I have to? Like, yes, I would really like you to do this today. no, you don't have to go in person. You know, like sometimes there is a little bit of negotiation, but it's not that people don't like legislatures. It is some of that, you know, preferences to be doing their job rather than being out front.
Yeah.
So it's not, but it is, I recognize the fact that it is good for you to hear from the folks that are leading those programs.
Thank you.
My compliments on your answer to my question, because I'm sure it was unanticipated. I was on judicial nominating for a while, and one of the best questions we ever asked of a judge who wanted to become, or a lawyer who wanted to become a judge, what's the one question you hope we'd never ask you? So my compliments, and thank you for your honesty, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
And I, you know, personally,
Do I need a campaign, like vote for me?
yeah, literally a vote for Christine.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think I feel positive in my vote. There's nothing that I have any issues with that I've flagged, but.
Well, and I think you all know how to reach out to me if you guys have any particular
Yeah.
issues.
You're easy,
Yeah.
you're good and responsive.
So,
Feels a bit like a formality because we've had you in on specific issues.
yeah,
Multiple times throughout the session.
yeah. Yeah, just putting in the plug for our classification compensation project that Senator Cullimore knows that we've been trying to work on for a long time. And we did get money in the governor's budget to be able to move that project forward. So at some point, if
We'll put a good word. in next door.
if appropriations is asking.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Thank you. All right.
So 3:00, we were going to speak with the treasurer's office next by Zoom.
They're on right now.
Wonderful. So I have, and welcome in Albert and Ashley.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, Beth. I don't know if we want to go around the room or not. Let's not. I got your email and I've read it. And I think I understand what you're asking for, but maybe you can, in however long it takes you to ask us, ask the whole committee.
Sure, certainly. I can start. And for the record, my name is Ashlyn Doyon, and I'm the Director of Policy in the State Treasurer's Office. Thanks very much to the committee for the time this afternoon and on such short notice. We wrote to you this afternoon because in 2019, we did a wholesale sort of renovation of the unclaimed property statute. It was a 109-page bill that we went through line by line in this committee when former Senator White was the chair. And so I think that the jurisdiction is shared by both the Government Operations Committee as well as the Senate Finance Committee for unclaimed property. We have a budget request this year for 2 program technician 3 positions in unclaimed property that are paid 100% from unclaimed property special funds. And I'm not sure whether or not that is going to be included in the House budget, but we were hoping to provide some context and sort of an impassioned plea for these positions to your committee as you're contemplating what the priorities that you have will be that you'll share with your Senate Appropriations Committee when you receive the budget from the House. And so shortly I'll turn it over to our unclaimed property director, Al Pearl, but I'll just intro that the unclaimed property division, since sort of that revamp of the statute in 2019, and also with Treasurer Pichek taking office, we have been prolific in our efforts in the past couple of years to return unclaimed properties, which are forgotten financial properties that have been escheated to the state, back to the rightful owners in Vermont, and trying really hard to get as many properties as we can back to the pockets of the Vermonters that they belong to. And we are not only we've been paying record numbers of claims, but we've also been bringing in record amounts of money to the state. And I'll let Al get into those specific numbers, but there are a couple of points that I want to make. Unclaimed property every year sends an amount of money to the general fund. It's called the general fund transfer. And that number is a function of the amount of receipts that we take in, basically minus a certain amount for administrative expenses. And so not only is the unclaimed property division self-sustaining, but it generates revenue that comes to your general fund, which is not necessarily the purpose of the program, right? The purpose of the program is to return money back to Vermonters. But I say that just to sort of underscore that there is a de minimis general fund impact, so to speak, with this position request. I see that there's a question maybe before I turn it over to Al.
Yeah, I am trying to understand how the unclaimed property division is giving money to the general fund. Where is that coming from?
Sure. So every year, especially in recent years, we receive more in unclaimed property that's escheated to the state from holders than we are able to return. And so essentially we do a calculation of what our administrative costs are and a prediction of how much we anticipate returning to Vermonters through our best efforts that year. And we send the rest to the general fund. We keep about $10 million sort of in reserve to pay properties out from, but we have $130 million worth of unclaimed property in the state, but we don't hold all of that in cash. We use a calculation to sort of guess how much we really need to have on hand to pay out a practical amount of claims, and the rest we send to the general fund for use.
So then isn't that just sort of a loan to the general fund? Because if at any point someone came forward and wanted that money, we would have to give it to them. It belongs to them.
Yes, we would have to give it to them. I think part of the calculus is based on the types of property that we hold. So there are a number of properties that we have that are worth only a few cents that we don't really anticipate anyone ever claiming, but that sort of serve the purpose of cushion in the fund. We also have a number of properties that come to us as unknown. And so it's not clear that they would ever be able to be claimed unless the holder somehow finds additional information that they're able to communicate to us about the property. And so there are also a number of properties that we hold for deceased individuals, and while their estate can make a claim, some of the properties are just so old that it's unlikely that we'll be able to identify a beneficiary. And so you're right that no one ever loses the right to claim their unclaimed property, but there are also a series of properties that we hold that help to self-sustain the program, and just sort of for practical purposes, it's unlikely that we'd see a claim from them.
That makes a lot of sense. Is this fund held in any kind of, because the other way I could see it making revenue would be if this was held in some sort of interest-bearing account, because then the interest is in fact not claimable.
So I'll let Al answer that. We have some of this money that we hold sort of in cash. My understanding is that we invest that in the sort of short-term investment pool that the state has for the rest of its cash, and that interest goes where all the other interest goes to the general fund. Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but also we have some unclaimed property funds that are stocks that we hold as the stocks until a specific time as prescribed in statute that we would cash those out. So this might be a good time for Al, for you to jump in to sort of provide some of the most recent unclaimed property stats, and also maybe talk about historical staffing in the program and how you've met your limitations right now and why we're coming forward with the ask.
Sure. For the record, Albert LaPearl, the Director of Unclaimed Property at the Treasurer's Office. So I just want to answer a little bit about the general fund transfer. That actually is written in statute that we will send 45%. So what we do is we take in X amount of dollars, we pay our expenses, we retain money to keep claims, and then 45% of that that's left goes to the general fund. That's written in statute. like Ashlyn said, historically speaking, we are not going to be able to return all the property. Property comes into us as unknown. We return on a long-term average about 55 to 56% of the property that we get in. And frankly, that is one of the top states in the nation. But thank you again for letting me talk about unclaimed property. As I like to tell people, unclaimed property is probably one of the greatest consumer protection acts that people are unaware of. Our responsibility is to have holders or businesses report that money to us that belongs to their customers. It's a central location. We safeguard those funds and return them to the rightful owners or their heirs, and businesses and nonprofits. We have had a banner year. I've worked for 3 treasurers. I've been the director for 20 years. I've worked for 3 treasurers, and Treasurer Pichek has done an outstanding job in his tenure in getting the word out of unclaimed property. To give you just some numbers, so far this year, we've paid about 26,000 properties out. The same time frame last fiscal year, we were at 13,000. We've already paid $7.2 million out this year. Last year, we were at 3.1 million. So we're doing a great job. We are limited in our staff. Currently, we have 1 vacancy that we're trying to fill. We have a temporary employee. We have 1 permanent employee who's works in the claims division, and 1 employee who works with our holders to report property. We're paying so many claims that we are having a hard time, frankly, keeping up with our customers. But like I said, it's really a good program. We are a Consumer Protection Act. For example, right now I'm working with a couple that has just over $2,000 in our office. Well, they need that money. They're getting evicted, and that money will keep them in their home. I mean, this is a really important program.
Great story.
Pardon me?
That's a great story, Al.
Right. I mean, honestly, I hear stories all the time. It's not the people who have $50,000 in our program that need the money. Frankly, it's the people that have $25 in our program. We just worked with the AG's office to return the motel security deposits to our most vulnerable population. Those individuals really can use this money. And, our program, our goal is to really return the program. And I say this to everybody, Al LaPearl's job is to return the money. It's not to send money to the general fund. It's really not. It's a benefit of the program that we do, but the goal is to really reunite owners and their funds. The general fund gets the money, and that's great for the benefit of all Vermonters until the rightful heirs are found. But like the senator said, it's really a loan. If everybody comes forward, we have over 1 million names in our database, then we're going to have to pay out the $130+ million. Now, the likelihood of that, like Ashlyn said, a lot of the property is unknown. And frankly, people don't want to claim 25 cents. Some people do, but most people don't. So that money will always sit in the program for the benefit, again, of all Vermonters. Senator, did you have a question?
So Al, I just have a question. The range, of course, of the dollars you talked about, from 25 cents all the way up to $50,000. You'd think somebody might have thought that, oh, Miss May, $50,000 is a lot of money to go unclaimed. What is the average size amount that is unclaimed?
It's between $300 and $400.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's pretty low.
Right. I mean, we do have some properties right now. I have a claim on my desk for $700,000.
What?
Right.
How would
Correct.
somebody be not missing that?
Well, and I think when you have billions of dollars, 700,000 isn't that much.
Or
That's
if
exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Jeez.
We have people.
Go ahead, Al.
Under-
Oh, please go ahead.
We have individuals that, frankly know the money's in our program and don't want to claim it, which is great for the state, of course, because the state can use that money until the individual decides to claim it. But again, most people aren't like that. Most people need their money, and I can tell you without reading any economic news about how the economy's doing, because when the economy's poor, people are claiming those $3 and $4, and when it's great, those $3 and $4 are not getting claimed. So.
Ashley, you mentioned earlier administrative costs. Can you give us an idea of the annual administrative cost that you're in essence, taking out of the fund? And are these two positions for which you are asking permanent positions, or are they just a sort of, I don't know what the gap, you've got a gap now of demand and supply, sort of, so to speak, at least. Are they going to eventually go away, or are these two people you want to keep on forever?
They're not.
The request is for permanent positions. We haven't had an increase in staff for 25 years, and we think that we can absolutely sustain that amount of work going forward. The total dollar amount for those two positions is $201,000 and change annually. They're program technician 3s, so the salary and benefits cost per position is low relative to other positions in state government. And Al, the total unclaimed property budget is between 1 and 2 million.
1.1.
1.1 million annually.
And what were the administrative costs deducted from that last year?
How much was the unclaimed property transfer last year?
The transfer total was just over $9 million.
So $9 million came to the general fund last year, and that number right now, this year coming to you, is lower than that. We do usually provide an update to the number in May because we receive all of our holder receipts, most of them in the spring. And so the timing that we receive unclaimed property receipts is just not timed with the fiscal year or the legislative session. So we're always coming with a shore up or adjustment of the number in May.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for either Al or Ashland? Of course, we don't make the ultimate decision in this room. We will certainly speak with our counterparts next door in the Appropriations Committee. And have you already made your pitch there?
We absolutely have already made the pitch there, and we've also indicated that we would love 2 positions. That's the ask this year. But if, we could also significantly improve the situation in unclaimed property with 1 position as well. It's not an all or nothing request.
Senator Clarkson.
So, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we do a white action. We channel former Senator White, and we do a letter to the Appropriations
We
Committee.
talked about that earlier. I'm not sure that was done last year.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Oh,
We did do it
we
last
did.
year
We did.
from
We did a
party.
bunch of
Yeah.
things.
Okay.
We advocate for that.
Yeah, we did a letter.
We did.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
did. I think.
Whether it's by letter or just, hey, by the way, Andrew.
Perhaps carrier.
Kind of like, yes.
A letter is kind of nice because it then also goes on our, it can or cannot go on our website too. Just because that's one of our jobs, I feel that our job is advocating for pieces in state government that are important and it would make it operate better and operate more efficiently. And that's certainly what we want the Untitled Property Division to be doing, operating at full capacity. So,
Yes, Al.
Senator Clarkson, we also have a language piece related to unclaimed property that we've given to that Senate Appropriations Committee. And right now we are allowed to pay sort of a fast track claim for $250. And that's sort of the top amount that we're able to do that fast track claim process for. We're seeking to increase that amount so that we can get money back to folks faster as well.
and what are you wanting to increase that to?
We're increasing hopefully to $1,000.
Oh, that's what I thought, yeah.
I think I may have found a volunteer to write our letter in Senator Clarkson.
Well, particularly if you draft it for me, Ken.
Oh,
Let's
she actually
check.
has a letter. There actually was a letter that's.
Oh, yeah,
on.
I got Al wants to speak.
Oh.
Yes, Al.
Well, I just want to also throw this out there that if you have an event that you would like unclaimed property to show up at with our traveling kiosk to help people in your district, find unclaimed property, we'd be more than happy to show up an event that you're holding to assist people in returning money.
Okay. Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So I hate to ask the obvious, but if you control this money and it's in the treasurer's office, why do you have to ask approps to increase the fast track return?
Because that number is in statute. And
You're
so
joking. That was a mistake.
there's a uniform law that most states have adopted, and that's what we implemented in 2019. And that actually, it makes it Every state has small tweaks to the uniform law, but it makes it a lot easier to coordinate with the holders and the financial institutions that are holding the property for them to issue to states under sort of common boundaries.
Got it. I was just channeling, because I often channel Senator Vyhovsky in that we don't want to put too many specific things or lists. In particular, she hasn't spoken about lists, but specific amounts are often problematic in statute, hence this very request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
Thanks.
So, yeah, we probably should start making a list, and I haven't been keeping track of who's asked for what in here. Unless somebody else wants to
Oh,
make a list, yes, Senator Hart.
Do, we want to do a roll for Beth?
Well, with all due respect, Allison wasn't able to hear much of the interview. If she's comfortable.
I have written her confirmation
Oh,
letter, one or two bienniums.
okay.
Before I said it, so I actually am a big fan of Commissioner Vestiges and would, I will look at the YouTube if you would, because she said it was good and your
Yeah, I thought so.
conversation went well. So I'd be happy to look at it, but
Why don't we vote tomorrow?
why don't we vote?
Okay.
That'd be
All right,
great.
I guess we saw it on there, we could do it.
Because I do believe I have written a couple for her, you know, representing her on the floor.
That might be your first confirmation address.
Oh, yeah, you could, yeah.
Anything else for the committee today? Again, tomorrow, as the pro tem indicated earlier on the floor, I'm guessing it'll be a 3-hour session. It might be 2 with a break and then resume, but we have witnesses scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow. And I think we can still make that happen. That would be Lauren Hibbert coming in on S-119. Then we have the Fire and Rescue Coalition coming in at 2:30, and I've
Oh, great.
suggested that H-154 with Bob Burke testifying about the November as the Vermont, a month of the veteran, be put up until 3. So we'll still have 3 events to take care of, but I think it's going to be later in the day. Although Senator Vyhovsky, boy, I feel
Nailed it.
awful now. I mean,
Nailed
why
it.
didn't you kick me under the
You
table
nailed it.
9 times?
Because she's a gracious person.
I bet.
I agree.
I'll just hand it to you.
She's
And look
indicated,
what I'm handing you.
she's indicated that we only have 7 bills, so it might not be as long as the pro tem thinks, but we do have a whole bunch of confirmations as well, so we'll see how it goes.
I think Allison has this nailed.
You can use it.
I think you have it nailed.
You're welcome.
Well, okay, well, we can decide that tomorrow. Anything else for us today?